when Terry Gubunga was absent from his wedding ceremony. No one could imagine that she was kidnapped and left to die on the side of the road after being gang-raped. This was the first of two tragic events that befell this young Nairobian pastor. But he survived them. It was a very big wedding. I was a pastor, so all the members of our church attended, as well as family and relatives. Harry, my fiancé, and I were so excited. I had the wedding ceremony at All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi, and I had also rented a beautiful dress. The night before the wedding, I noticed that I had some of Harry's clothes, including his tie. He couldn't show up to the wedding without a tie, so a friend of mine who stayed the night with me said she'd take Harry's stuff to him first thing in the morning. We woke up early in the morning and I accompanied him to the bus station. On my way back home, I passed a man leaning on the hood of a car. Suddenly he grabbed me from behind and threw me into the back seat of the car. Two other men were in the car. The car started. All this happened in less than a second. They put a piece of cloth in my mouth. I was punching and kicking and trying to scream. When I managed to get the cloth out of my mouth, I shouted, "Today is my wedding day." And I got the first blow. One of the men said to me, "You cooperate or you die." The men raped me in sequence. I was sure I was going to die, but I was still fighting to survive. When one of the men removed the cloth from my mouth, I bit his penis. He screamed in pain and another one of them stabbed me in the stomach with a knife. They opened the car door and threw me out of the moving car. I was a few miles from home, outside of Nairobi. More than 6 hours had passed since I had been kidnapped. A child who witnessed me being thrown out of the car informed his grandmother. A group of people came running to me. Then the police came. They tried to take my pulse but failed. They thought I was dead. They wrapped me in a blanket and started to take me to the morgue. On the way, I gasped and coughed under the blanket. "Is he alive?" said the policeman. And he drove around and took me to the biggest government hospital in Kenya. I was so shocked, I mumbled unintelligible words. I was half naked and blood covered my body. My face was swollen from the blows. But the supervisor guessed that I was a bride. He said to the nurses, "We should look in the nearby churches to see if a bride has been reported missing." By the way, All Saints Cathedral was the first church they called. "Do you have a lost bride?" asked the nurse. "Yes, we had a wedding ceremony for 10 in the morning, but the bride has not come," said the priest. When I didn't go to church, my parents were very scared. They sent someone to find me. Rumors spread. Some thought, maybe he has changed his mind? But the others said, "No, he is not that kind of person." What happened? After a few hours they had to remove the hall decorations to prepare the hall for the next ceremony. Harry waited in the church office. When my parents found out where I was, they came to the hospital with everyone around. Harry even brought my wedding dress. But the media had also heard about the incident and reporters had come to the hospital. I was transferred to another hospital to be more comfortable. There, the doctors stitched up my wounds and gave me the shocking news: the stab wounds have deeply torn your uterus and you will not be able to have children in the future. The doctors gave me birth control pills, as well as drugs that protected me from the HIV virus and AIDS. I couldn't think, I wasn't ready to accept what had happened. Harry said he still wanted to marry me. "I want to take care of him and make sure he's back safe and sound in my arms, in our home," she said. "Really?" I was not in a position to give a positive or negative answer because the faces of the three men and everything that happened occupied my whole mind. A few days later, when the pain medication wore off, I was able to look him in the eye. I kept saying sorry. I felt as if I had embarrassed him. Some people said that it was my own fault that I left home early in the morning. This hurt me a lot, but my family and Harry supported me. The police never arrested the aggressors. I went for identification several times, but I could not recognize any of them, and it bothered me every time and made me feel bad again. I had taken 10 steps forward, 20 steps back. I finally went to the police station and said, "You know what happened to me. I just want it to be over." 3 months after the attack, I was told that my HIV test was negative. I was very happy, but they said it would be better to wait another 3 months to be sure. Harry and I started planning a second wedding ceremony. Although I was very angry about the media harassment, the person who read my story asked me to come to meet me. His name was Gola, and he himself had survived a rape. We talked and he said that he and his friends want to give us a free wedding ceremony. "No bookkeeping, whatever you want," he said. I was very happy and excited. I ordered a type of cake that was much more expensive. Instead of a rental wedding dress, I could now buy a wedding dress for myself. In July 2005, 7 months after our first planned wedding, Harry and I got married and went on our honeymoon. 29 later, on a very cold night, we were at our own home. Harry lit some charcoal and brought it into the bedroom. After dinner, he took it outside because the room was too hot. I went under the blanket and he locked the door. When he was sleeping, he said he was dizzy, but we didn't care. It was so cold that we could not sleep. That's why I said to throw another blanket. But Harry said he couldn't, because he couldn't afford it. I couldn't get up either. I understood that something happened. He passed out. I passed out. I remember that I woke up and called him. Sometimes he answered and sometimes he didn't. I dragged myself out of bed and threw myself on the floor. I started crawling towards the phone. I called the neighbor and said, "Something happened, Harry is not answering." The woman next door came immediately, but it seemed like ages before I could reach the front door, stay awake enough to open the door for her. A large group of screaming women came into the house. I passed out again. I woke up in the hospital and looked for my husband. They told me that they are treating him in the next room. I said, "I'm a priest and I've seen a lot in life. You have to be honest with me." The doctor looked at me and said, "I'm sorry your husband didn't make it." I couldn't believe it. Going back to the same church for the funeral was terrifying. Just a month ago, there I was in my white dress and Harry standing in front of me looking handsome in a suit. Now, I was being carried in a black dress and he was in a casket. People thought I was cursed and kept their children away from me. They said, "He is a bad omen." In a way, I thought the same. Some accused me of murdering my husband. It really tired and hurt me. I was mourning. An autopsy revealed what had really happened. Her respiratory system had filled with carbon monoxide and she had suffocated. I was mentally disturbed. I felt that God had turned his back on me. I felt that everyone had left me alone. I couldn't believe how other people could still laugh, go out and live. I was crushed and crushed. One day, I was sitting on the balcony of the house and I was looking at the birds flying away. I said, "God, how do you take care of these birds but not me?" The moment I said this, I remembered that I had been sitting in a room with closed curtains, sad, 24 hours a day. No one will return this time to you. You have to know, these weeks, months and a year have been wasted. It was a hard reality. I told everyone that I will not marry again. God took my husband from me, and the thought of experiencing such a loss again was very difficult for me. I hope no one experiences this. The pain is so deep that you feel it with all your being. But there was a man named Tony Gabunga who kept visiting me. She encouraged me to talk about my husband and think about the good times. Once he didn't call me for 3 days, I got really angry. I realized that I was interested in him. Tony proposed to me, but I told him to go buy a magazine and read my story in it and say, "Do you still love me?" He came back and said he still wanted to marry me. But I said, "Listen, there's another thing. I can't have children, so I can't marry you." He said, "Children are a gift from God. If He gives us that, thank you. But if not, then I will have more time to love you." I thought to myself, wow, he has a look at this. And I gave him a positive answer. Tony went home to tell his parents. They were very excited before they heard my story. But then they said, "You cannot marry her. She is cursed." My father-in-law refused to attend our wedding ceremony. But we did our job. We had 800 guests, many of whom came out of curiosity. It was 3 years after my first marriage, and I was very scared. As we exchanged vows at the wedding ceremony, I thought to myself, "God, I'm here again. Please don't let her die." When the guests started praying for us, I cried uncontrollably. A year after our wedding, I felt unwell and went to the doctor, and to my surprise, I was told that I was pregnant. A few months later, the doctor ordered absolute bed rest because of the stab wounds to my uterus. But everything went well. We got a daughter, and her name is Tahila. 4 years later, Toda, our second daughter, was born. Today, I am my father-in-law's best friend. I wrote a book about my ordeal called "Crawling Out of the Darkness" that gives people hope to rise again. I also founded an organization to help rape survivors. I don't call them rape victims. We advise and support them. We are looking for a place where they can prepare to face the outside world. I have forgiven the men who attacked me. It was not an easy task, but I realized that it is pointless to be angry and upset with them who don't care. My beliefs also made me anxious to forgive them and return evil not with evil, but with good. The most important thing is to mourn. All steps must be done. You should be sad enough to decide to do something about your situation. You have to keep moving, even if you have to crawl on the ground. Move towards destiny because it is waiting for you and you have to reach it.